Welcome back, my friends. Today we're going to be going over how to give our player here a little bit of health. So just to catch you up on where we are so far, if I move to the left, right, back, or forth, then I not only have a ninja, but he has a really cool little tail here. He has the ability to jump, and I can move the cursor up and down and left and right, and that dictates his motion and where the camera is looking as well. So in this episode, what we're going to be doing is adding in a health feature and putting something into our game that allows him to gain just a little bit of health. So the first thing I'm going to do is create an integer variable that's going to hold our current player health. So int player HP, set that equal to 0. Now I could set it to public, and that would allow me to view it inside our object detector window right here under player controller, just like our public player variable is right here. The problem with doing that is that as soon as it is a public variable, other scripts that I will make later have direct access to setting what our player health could be, which is a great way to enable other people to cheat. And we're going to start this game off right and kind of add in some security to make it so it's harder for other people to hack our game and cheat it. So instead of setting this to a public integer, which would allow those other scripts to mess with it, I'm going to set it to a private, but I still want to be able to see it in the inspector window so I can see that my script is working. So in order to do that, I am going to run a operation called serialized field. What this does is it makes this preceding variable, this guy right here, and it makes it so that it's visible inside our player controller. So let's hit save just to make sure that that works. I go in here, and as it updates, we can see player HP is right there. However, again, it is a private variable, which means no script outside of the player script can directly access and modify it. Cool, so we have our player HP is currently set to 0. Now what we're going to do is go in and create a function that will add player health directly to our player. Now we could just make it so that any other script can directly just say add any amount of health that it wants, but again, that makes it so that it's really easy for someone else to come into our game and hack the game, and we're trying to make it a little less hacker friendly than that. So what we're going to do is create a public, so other people can access it, give health. And then inside here, we'll have an integer that is amount. So our public function, give health, has an amount that it can give that health to. And because this function is not giving anything back, it's just giving the player, it's just modifying a variable, but we're not looking to get any data out of this function. We're going to call it of type void. So public void, give health, and then the amount. So from within this, we want to be able to modify the player's health by the amount here. So we could just say player HP equals player HP plus amount. And this will actually work perfectly fine, unless you want to have a maximum health that your player might have. So if that's indeed the case and you want to make it so that the player health can only go up to 100, which is what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a clamp function. This is the same clamp function that we used earlier up here to limit our rotation in the x-axis. So mathf.clamp, the first part is the value that we want, and we can see that it does take integer. And then next to this, we have the minimum value, which will be 0, and the maximum value, which we'll say will be 100. Tie that off with a semicolon. So there we have it. We have a function that is able to indirectly give our player some health without giving them full access to just make the health whatever they want it to be. Now that our player has a health variable and the ability to give him some health, now we actually have to have an object on our world that will give us some of that health. So the first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and add something that we can collide into that will give our player some health. So I'm just going to right click over here. I'm going to create a 3D object, and we'll call this guy a sphere. We'll make sure that his position is just above the ground. Maybe we'll add him floating a little bit. He doesn't have a rigid body component to him, so he'll just kind of float there, and that's perfectly great. I'm going to name this guy Health Sphere, because why not? And now we're going to make it so that it is a trigger for an event. What this means is that when I walk into him, so instead of colliding and pushing the sphere, what we'll do is every single time our player hits this guy, it is going to trigger some form of event. That event being giving us health. So now that we have our sphere that we're going to collide into, and we know that it's a trigger for a kind of event, now we're going to add its script. So let's go into our scripts folder, right click, create new C# script. I'm going to name this pickup. And this script will actually handle more than just our health in the future. This will handle any type of thing that we want to be able to pick up without directly interacting with it. So things like health or armor, potions, ammo, anything like that. So anything that we can walk over and it'll automatically pick it up, unlike a door, which we would actually want to go over and press a button to interact with it. So our pickup script, let's open that up. And we want it to be so that whenever we walk into that sphere, it will trigger an event. Unity has a handy little feature called onTriggerEnter. When our event that has a trigger on it, when we enter that object, so when we're touching it, this script will run. So private void onTriggerEnter, and it gives us even some information about the collider, the thing that we're colliding with, and it stores that information about the thing that we're colliding with in a variable called other. Let's just first make sure this works. So debug.log, and then hit the HP thing. Sweet, so this is gonna go and check every single time we collide with that sphere. It should log out for us in the console window. We hit the HP thing. All right, so now we have this. We just have to add our script, pickup. Let's play and see what happens. Go to our console. Cool, now that we have an object that we can interact with, let's have it actually do something. So back in here, get rid of that because we know it works. At the moment, we have to now call that function within the player script that says that we want to add HP, right? So that's under our player controller script, give health. So what we need to do is create a reference to this player controller script. How we do that is we create a variable of type player controller. Whatever we named this player controller script, that's the name of what we put right here, okay? Because it's referencing the class player controller, which, as we can see in our player controller, is of class player controller. Now this only works because this is a public class. If it was a private class, we could not access it in there. So let's go back in here, player controller, and we'll name this guy, we'll say player, because it is our player. And we're going to set it equal to the thing that we're colliding into, other, dot, get component. And just in case, because our player has a whole lot of components on it, we're going to make sure that we only get the player controller. So that's what this does, is by putting it in these less than and greater than symbols, we are saying that we want to get the component that is the player controller. Because it's a function, we're going to close it off like that, and from here we should now have access. Player, our variable we just made, dot give health. See? All right, let's just give them 10 to start off with and see what happens. I'm going to make sure that my player is selected and that I can see the player HP. Now let's try touching it. Boop. Look at that. Now this is giving us an error that says that at the moment it's trying to get an object that doesn't exist. The reason why is because as our player is moving, there are other things that are not the player controller that are colliding with us, such as the bandana, for instance. So what we want to do is make sure that the script only runs when it notices that it's hitting the player. So how we're going to do that is we're going to tag our player as a player. This tag then allows us to go into our code here and say that if other, the name of the object that we're colliding with, dot compare tag equals player. Now we run our code. If the tag of the thing that we're colliding with is player, then store the information about that player in the variable player, and then give him some health. If we look at the player, you can see he now has 10 health, 20 health, 30 health, 40 health. Awesome. So it is working perfectly. It should stop at 100 and not allow any more than 100, which is great. And the game doesn't crash, which is always a great feature when your game does not actually destroy itself in a fit of rage. So now what we're going to do, this is all great. I love having Health Sphere. He's awesome. However, I can just keep going back and forth into him, which means that I can have infinite health. It's like the bandana in Metal Gear Solid. And infinite health does not make an interesting game. So let's make it so that this object will go away after it is used once. All right. So how we do that, back in our code here, is after the player gets this and the player's health is given, 10 in this case, I'm going to say that I want to destroy this object. What that means is I'm going to make it hidden, for one, but I'm also going to erase it from the existence of this entire game universe. It shall be no more. It went from something and it is now nothing. The reason why we want to do that instead of just hiding it is because if we end up only hiding it, and let's say we have 1,000 of these things around the game has to render 1,000 of these health spheres. And if it keeps adding more later and later, it just keeps up giving more resources to these health spheres until all of the health crashes our game again. So in order to prevent that, as soon as it's used up, we've used what it is good for. We want it to go away permanently and no longer exist. So how we do that is a command called destroy. Boop. And we're going to destroy this. This is a reference to whatever this is. In this case, whatever this code is on, right? So if I have our health sphere and this code is within it, I want to destroy this. But I also want to destroy the rest of the game sphere, the health sphere. So what I have to do is get not just the script I want to destroy, I want to destroy the entire game object, all of the health sphere. So I'll go back in here and say destroy this dot game object. Boop. See, it not only went away and gave us health, but also disappeared from our entire scene. Let's watch that again. Ready? Here's the health sphere. We can see the health spheres right here. And as soon as I touch the health sphere, boop, completely gone. Sweet, it works perfectly. Now I'm going to say I want to add one more feature. I want to make it so that if I have two of these guys, that I can choose how much health each one has. Maybe randomly, but for right now I just want to be able to modify it easily without having to go into the code. So what I'll do is go back into our pickup script. I'm going to create a variable at the class level, so it'll be accessible to all the functions. I'm going to say public we'll make it an integer amount. And that will be the amount that we'll set for our health. We'll default it at 0, just so we don't get an error. And then I'm going to change the player.giveHealth to, instead of being directly 10, I'm going to change that to amount. Now when I go into here in my script, I can see that there's an amount. Let's set this to 25 now. Boop. Check on my player, and his health is currently 25. And that's basically it. So in the next video, we're going to make this a little bit more interesting by replacing the health sphere with an actual kind of 3D mesh that looks like a health thing. And what we're going to do is give ourselves a little bit of a UI element here that'll be able to track how much health we actually have. Go forth, try making this game on your own, keep adding these elements, and keep your vision for your game in mind as you're making this game. If this was helpful, like the video, and please do subscribe for more content. We're releasing twice a week, both coding and other build challenges to kind of help you get going in this time of social isolation and distancing. Also with this, I've created some merch for our Ninja logo boy. Do you like Ninja Boy here? Well, if you do, you can now get him on a t-shirt. You can now get him on a sticker. You can see him running around. So if you're interested in that, check the link in the description. We've also opened up a Discord, which has sections in it for everything from coding and game development all the way to building challenges. So if you have any questions or want some more help or just want to contribute and show what you're working on, please join us in the Discord. A link is down in the description. Thanks, have a great night, and continue building. Can't wait to see the things that you are making. See you in the next video.